Mr. Thomas,
Hey, Cooks.
welcome to the family table.
That's fine.
This is what Bongani and I do quite often with a number of people, and we're happy that you finally decided to join us.
And I'm sorry I canceled last time.
No, man.
That's okay.
We waited for this one. We waited because I think it's going to be special. I think there's a lot of nuggets that you'll probably share with us. But welcome. I know you had said you're drinking water today, but this is a good wine. And I know you're a wine guy, so I'll pour us some wine and Gugu, take it away. Eh?
Listen, I get tempted easily.
You do.
Nothing like a good ride to tempt one.
Yeah. All
But
right.
but you know what's very different about this interaction with Ciko for me, Bongani, is usually when I meet Ciko and his team, it's all about numbers.
Yeah, it always is.
It's usually reporting season. We talk about the company's performance, how retail business banking is doing. Thank you, sir. So this is going to be quite different, I think, because I had already prepped, okay, so maybe we should talk about your career in banking. Maybe we should talk about how you started at Unilever. Maybe we should talk about your love for GTIs. But I don't know, maybe let's start there. Cars being your passion.
Yeah,
I can tell you an insight that I know about GTIs. Because Dad used to work for VW.
Aha.
And he tells a money story where his dad takes him to the factory and to meet the guys on the line. And I think maybe that's where it started, right? So take us back.
Probably. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in PE. In PE, I specifically grew up in New Brighton, actually.
Yeah.
The township just outside PE. And they've always called, they've called New Brighton the Detroit they used to call it the Detroit of the South, of the Cape back then, like in the apartheid years. Because we have car companies in the Eastern Cape. We have car companies, and it's a story that's not often told. With the shift to global manufacturing, a lot of those factories closed down. But when I grew up, that was the employer. It was either the manufacturer, or the tire companies, or the company that makes seats, or the company that makes fabrics for the seats. It's all the car industry in PE, or the company that makes windscreens, And because everyone works in the car industry, and my father the one time, and I mean, those are tough guys, Guys who work in the car industry, they're a little bit like miners, they're in the factory, and, my father was a classical blue-collar worker, so occasionally, I mean, I remember the one time clearly he dragged me to the factory, to show me off, to his colleagues in the assembly line, and I was just fascinated by these guys. There's all of them, tough guys, moving cars, running the production line, and you walk in there, and everyone is just like, they throw you around. You're a little boy, they throw you around, and I said, cars are the thing,
Really?
So for a very long time, I thought I'd find myself, and as we do growing up, I thought I'd work in the car industry. So it was always at the back of my mind, absolutely.
All right. Okay.
So when I sold cars, it was off the back of my mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from New Brighton, why didn't you go to UPE? Ending up in UCT, Western Cape. It's raining, it's cold.
Yeah, you know what, Bongan? I got a scholarship actually to go to high school in Grahamstown.
Okay.
So I finished high school. I did high school in Grahamstown and St Andrews.
Yes.
And I loved Grahamstown. I was actually born in a small town called Somerset East, which is 150 km outside. It's a farming town, literally. That's where I was born, and I grew up in PE.
Yes.
So I've always kind of been I had a small town childhood. Had a proper small town childhood. It wasn't even PE. I mean, it's a small town, right? I had a small town childhood. So when I had the opportunity after high school, I wasn't going to do small towns anymore. So I wasn't going to go to NMMU or UPE as it was called then, or Rhodes. That was not me. I was off to the big city as it were. So
Bright
off
lights.
to UCT it was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was always set. I mean, I was always determined. Loved Cape Town, loved UCT. I was always going to Cape Town.
I'm not going to ask about the university stories in case maybe other people are watching at home. Because, university is always great. We all act crazy. And
let me share a tidbit.
Just one story.
At registration,
Yes.
my surname is Thomas, and back then when we were registering, the guy in front of me, his surname started with a T as well.
Yes.
He was tall and loud,
Yes.
and his surname was Daugubong.
Okay.
A guy called Sarame, who's one of my best mates.
Oh,
he's one of my best
Telkom
mates.
incoming
Telkom,
CEO now.
Telkom
Yes.
CEO.
Yes.
Sarame is one of my
Jeez.
best mates. We're flatmates at Unilever. We've just been mates since then. We became mates from there, and every single misadventure I had at UCT, adversity was with that guy in tow.
We should get
We're going to get Sarami back on the
If
family
you
table.
ever had a drink with that guy,
Yes.
you know that misadventures can get out of size
Sure.
very
So,
quickly.
so there's places in Cape Town you go, Sarami and Ciko were here.
100%.
Perfect. You mentioned Unilever, right?
Yeah.
So Unilever is the
It's like the birthing ground, like, or grooming, the
the
school of...
University of Marketeers. And we'll get there. He's the one guy that I know who's studied in marketing and now he's a suit, he's a retail banker. The journey to the retail banking.
Yeah,
And there's an interesting entrepreneur story in the middle. We'll stop there.
even the marketing thing was a fluke, man.
Is
I
it?
studied science.
Okay.
Yes, BSc.
I'm a chemist.
Ah.
Yeah, I studied chemistry. So
What inspired that though? Because I would think if you're seeing this manufacturing plant, the vehicles all around you, you have ambitions of being in the big city, then maybe suits were always the dream. But sciences?
Yeah, no, I got sidetracked very quickly, Google. I was going to study engineering. I'm crap scared of drawing. Anything that's got anything to do with drawing, and which is fine for someone like me who loves art. I'm scared of drawing. So doing engineering entailed doing engineering drawing. You know, so you see those guys carrying those big boards on campus with drawing boards. I wasn't going to do that.
Sure.
So I'd registered for Chem-Eng.
Yes.
Attended Chem-Eng classes for the first 3 weeks, went to a couple of engineering drawing lectures, and I thought, I'm not going to do this. So I switched. That's how I ended up switching from engineering to studying chemistry.
Okay.
So I switched then, and I mean, I didn't know what what are you going to do with a chemistry degree, you know? You'll probably be an academic and take it to masters and PhD, and I thought, you know what, that's what I'll probably do.
Sure.
You know? And then on campus, when we were doing, I think it was the honors year on campus, Unilever came to recruit.
Yes. Like
And a friend of mine had actually applied for Unilever, but we were in the lab.
Yes.
So it was a Friday, and I'd left the lab early to go and drink with Sarawi. So he asked me to drop off his forms at the Unilever desk because he was still finishing off his pracs at the lab. And I bumped into the Unilever guys
Yes.
on a Friday because they weren't busy. So they were like, they had time to chat, had a bit of a chat. Hey, okay, geez, those are impressive. I was like, no, those are not mine.
Yes.
You know, those are David Power's forms, and David Power is a professor of chemistry.
Yes.
He's a very clever man. So his marks were very impressive.
Sure.
Those are not mine. Oh, okay, so yeah, so we got into a conversation, and that conversation led them to say, hey, why don't you interview with us? So I thought, you know what, I don't know
Nothing
what
to
I'm doing
lose.
this chemistry thing, I don't know what I'm going to do anyway. Let's see. I had a scholarship with Shell. So I was always going to be guaranteed if I decided to work, I was going to have a job at Shell in the lab somewhere. And or I had another scholarship with SAB as well. So it was either that or go and brew with SAB and be a brewer. So I had choices. So I thought, okay, you know what, let me try this, guys. It's better than wearing overalls and lab coats. And then they said, geez, you've got the personality of a marketer, you know? Don't you want to get into marketing? I said, what is that again?
Yes.
And the guy wrote down and he gave me Kotler and said, go and read this. So they gave me the Kotler textbook.
Ah.
And I chowed it over the weekend, like front page to back page, all 23 chapters.
Yes.
So all 23 chapters of the textbook, and that's how I got into marketing.
Ah.
By reading Philip Kotler, the textbook, I like
Ciko.
and that's how I got into Unilever.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would not have expected that. I actually thought one would follow a very traditionalist system. But okay, so you go into that environment, you start learning more about marketing, you develop and grow this interesting career within the realm of marketing with entrepreneurship. But that calls on, I don't know, different experiences that you must have had to go through.
Yeah, it was. And I suppose, you know, for me personally, it kind of meant that I came in with a very unconventional approach because I wasn't taught this thing.
Yes.
You know, I didn't have a textbook approach. And Bongani, you've worked at Unilever, you know what they like. They're very, like, especially with, you know, they shape you very early to be a conventional marketer.
Exactly.
And so I had the benefit of a system that allowed that, but also the benefit of coming in without any preconceptions of what it is and what it's about. So I brought my own thinking and my own flavor into my job as well. So, and that's...
Which was your first brand?
It was stock, country spread.
Yes.
That's
Stock
the
country
margarine.
spread,
Yes.
The margarine.
Okay.
So I worked for foods.
Okay.
So we worked with spreads. So stock country spread was my first brand. And then we launched something called Enjoy, which was low-fat specialty cheese, low-fat cheeses and spreads. And then Simmonsburg as well.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Unilever sold Enjoy, they discontinued. Simmonsburg, I think they sold to Rembrandt later.
Yeah, so they have sold the portfolio of
most of the
spreads.
portfolios.
It's actually sitting with RCL now.
Yeah, it is. Oh, is it RCL
yes,
now?
Yes, yeah. So I totally came out of that.
Yeah.
And then it jumped from Unilever, SAB.
Yeah. So SAB was on a very strong recruitment drive, poaching people from Unilever actually. So they took Ian Penhale, who was our boss at the time at Unilever.
Yes, Ian, yes.
So they took Ian, and then Ian came back and just fetched us. Said, I'm coming for my boys. So he took myself, Sarame, Sarame was at Unilever as well. So we came up to Joburg because that's when we were in Durban still. So that's when we came up to Joburg, in effect, joined SAB, worked for SAB, and that was just fun.
Is it?
That was just fun. I mean...
Is this when you bought the GTI and the earning potential also increased and then...
Yeah. That's when I bought the GTI actually.
Ah.
Yeah. I bought the GTI. I arrived in Joburg. I was living in Durban, driving an old Mazda. Come up to Joburg, buy a GTI.
You finally
arrived.
You're the cool guy.
You're in the
You know
big,
what I
you're in the big city,
You know?
and you're driving a
I'm in
GTI,
the car.
and you've got a friend like Serami. I can imagine.
So yeah, I mean, my big mates at SAB at the time was Sarame and Enzo.
Okay.
Enzo Scacella, a guy called Enzo Scacella, who's
Yes.
at MTN now.
Yes.
Yeah, and the three of us were like thick as thieves. We're inseparable.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, great times, great times.
Thirsty.
Oh.
Thirsty as hell.
So the first time I heard of Ciko Thomas, and I was telling him before the interview, I was driving an Isuzu then, and he was being interviewed by Given Mkari. And I remember when I left Unilever coming to Joburg, all I wanted to drive was a white BMW 320i.
Inspired by?
It was just then, but he then convinced me. So there's this black guy, he owns a dealership called Joburg Auto. He's talking, the trailblazers, him and his mates, and he's talking about BMW. And I literally went, I didn't buy it from them, but I went, because only one dealership could take me out of this mistake that was an Isuzu, right? So they took me out of it and I bought a white BMW. But I think many black middle class people then would tell a story of the Joburg Auto guys, right? Ciko and them. How did you guys get into car dealerships and entrepreneurship? I mean, SAB probably pays well. Bonuses were great. You're driving a GTI.
Should have kept those shares.
Exactly. And everybody, I mean, during COVID, everybody was talking about pivoting. And you guys decided, no, you know what? I'm going to do this thing.
Yeah. You know, it's a very interesting story because at the time, another group of mates of mine, I mean, the one guy, Mnetisi, was, and I were mates from varsity, as well. So in Joburg now, he is working in the tech space. He was working for Microsoft at the time. So we have this idea that, and it was actually his idea, and his flatmate was a guy called Litango Bisa, who's a very good mate of mine and my business partner to this day. My side hustles I do with Lita. So we have this idea, and the fourth friend, Zwei, who was my mate, I grew up with Zwei, he was a chemical engineer as well. So we have this idea that, you know what, there's an opportunity to get into business. Let's talk about getting into business. This is early 2000s, coming into the early 2000s. We're doing MBAs, we're clever guys, we're kind of mid-corporate now, we're doing that whole thing. Nle at the time is working for Microsoft, and they've got a reseller program. So Microsoft sells through resellers, as you would know.
Yes.
They don't do the installations, most of them, it's a big, but there's a Dimension Data or an EOH or any of those guys. There was a small reseller business that did Microsoft, Enterprise Connection. And Enterprise Connection had shareholders that wanted to sell out.
Okay.
It came out of a reverse listing at the time, and there was an opportunity to participate in that deal and to buy it out of the listing. It was listed as a connection group.
Yes.
They had the enterprise reseller. The retail business was Incredible Connection,
Yes.
which you all know is a company that sells IT.
So, yeah.
And then there was a training business, a tech training business called Business Connection,
Yes.
which is now the BCX that sits inside Telkom.
Okay.
Wow.
So we we had an opportunity to buy this business. So it's like, okay, well, we're going to buy business, So Mna says, guys, let's buy these things. These things make money. So we have a conversation with the guys who run this thing. It's a management team. They do an MBO with BEE,
Yes.
owning a majority shareholding. So that was the first deal that we did.
Okay.
We literally needed to raise funding. We went to the IDC raised money, quit all our jobs, took all of our pension money because we needed to stick in slivers of equity into the deal.
Yes.
Quit our jobs and did this thing and put Mne in there to be co-CEO of the business with a guy called Paul Moses, who was our partner at the time.
Yes.
And we ran an IT business. So that was our first venture, and this business became very successful actually. We merged it into a listed company at the time and ended up with a listed IT entity. So we were doing this. Lita at the time hadn't quit his job, but he was our partner. So he was a silent partner in the venture. He was with BMW South Africa. He worked at BMW. He was a tax guy working for BMW South Africa. He was actually in Germany, just come back from Germany. Then he says off the back of this, guys, we also need to buy a dealership. You know, and I know that BMW is very keen to bring black BMW dealers onto the club because there weren't any at the time. So we approached BMW, but BMW introduces us to Barloworld. We had a couple of dealerships, and their worst performing dealership was one in the city.
Oh.
So that's the one that we bought. We bought that dealership
Why did you guys go for that one?
because it was cheaper.
Ah.
Never mind opportunity, never mind turning around sales,
Buy low,
just
buy
cheaper.
low, sell high.
Yes.
Buy
Okay.
low, buy low, buy low. So it was the cheapest in terms of valuation. So that's the asset that we bought.
Okay.
We bought the business, moved into a nicer part of the city towards Baboneng,
Yes.
in Commissioner, 190 Commissioner, where we moved it, redid an old dealership, did it up, and that's where we opened. And we opened Joburg City Auto. We named it Joburg City Auto because it was inspired by the city.
Yes.
It was inspired by the city of Joburg. I remember we were thinking, sitting there, what are we going to name this thing? Just name it Joburg City, guys. I mean, it's the city of Joburg.
Exactly.
You know, named it Joburg City Auto. Lovely energy. I mean, I loved that phase of my life. Very entrepreneurial. We just sold cars.
What about the stress though? Bongani always talks about, you know, the stresses of entrepreneurship and the pressures that people go through. Any lessons there?
Yeah, Gugu, you know, you take the good with the bad, eh? I mean, I remember, like, people on holiday, in December, people go on holiday. You know, we switch off after the 16th of December, people go and leave. You sit as an entrepreneur on the 16th of December and you start worrying about, we need to pay people their December salaries and their 13th checks. And if your cash flows are not in order, you start agonizing about that. People are lying on the beach around the 24th. We needed to worry about paying salaries, you know, and bonus salaries at the same time as well. And I mean, it's a hugely stressful business, the car business. No, don't ever let anyone beguile you into thinking that it's sexy. It is stressful. You're sitting with your capital tied up. You know, 7 Series sells for, I don't know how much they sell for these days. I think they sell for 3 million.
3 million or so.
You're sitting with a stock item on your floor that costs 3 million rands. It's your capital, and it's probably money that you've borrowed from a bank to
Yes.
finance the working capital. And the bank gives you an interest-free window, and normally it's 3-4 days. And after day 4, the interest kicks in. So if you don't sell that car,
You're in for it.
you're building interest. And by the time you sell, if you don't move it, the interest has wiped whatever profit margin you're going to make.
Because the
on that
margins
car.
must be quite low.
Yeah, margins are low. Margins are low. Margins are thin in that business. And people like Bongani and Gugu come and say, Ciko, give me a discount.
Oh, because we
give me a
know you,
discount.
or
Give
you're
me-
black.
Yeah, you're a brother. Give me a discount, you know? And you've got a discount and you're thinking, geez, I mean, interest has been eating into this thing as well. So often you give the car away for free just to move it,
Sure.
you know? So that's stress.
Would you open a dealership again?
Nah, I'm too old now. I'm too old and smart.
Did you run it?
Yeah, we ran it. So
You were there personally?
So Lita and I ran Joburg City Auto.
Yeah.
And then we bought VW
Yes.
in Bram.
Yeah.
We bought that from Super Group and the Audi dealership next to it.
Yes.
And then we split up. Lita remained running Joburg City Auto and I ran this too.
And how long did you guys do this for?
It was over a period of about, so it was around 2003 to 2009.
A good
Early
6 years.
2009. So we ran it over 6 years. And we were actually on the verge of buying, you talk of Isuzu, we were buying a GM dealership for Opel and Isuzu
Yes.
in town. So we're buying this dealership from Barloworld to Bolton. And the Barloworld guys came to us and say, gents, it's cool, let's do the deal, if that's what you want to do. But we're putting together a BE deal at the top at Barloworld.
Yes.
And we're looking for operational partners. We want people who understand the business that we're in, and you guys are ideal. could you consider being part of the BE consortium? I mean, Barloworld is a 110-year-old company. They come knocking on your door. At some stage, Barloworld was the biggest counter on the JSE. At some stage in its history, this is a proper company. And they come, massive industrial giant, they come and they're doing a BE deal. We weren't going to say no to that. And I mean, we weren't married to selling cars. I mean, we're not car guys. I mean, we're business people. So we reversed our dealerships into that deal.
Okay.
Value
Yes.
to participate in the broader Barloworld deal.
Okay.
And that's how we got out of the car business.
Oh, and that's how
In
Lita
effect.
ended up at...
That's how Lita ended up at Barloworld.
All right.
Yeah, that's how Lita ended up at Barloworld. And Nedbank was advising us
Ah.
on the deal. So Nedbank was advising us on the deal. So Graham Dempster, who was the chief operating officer at the bank at the time, came to me and said, "Hey, Baba, you're not a BE guy anymore. You don't have a job. What are you going to do?
Come this side.
You know, come." Binky Mohodi, Sis Binky,
Yes.
had gone to Telkom
Yes.
and left her job at Nedbank. She was, so I took over what Sis Binky used to do at Nedbank.
Marketing at the time.
Which was marketing at the time, marketing communications and corporate affairs. Took over the marketing communications cluster as executive head of that, and that's how I ended up joining Nedbank.
Jesus.
Yeah.
This is like...
More than 10 years on you, you're still there
Yeah,
though.
I'm still there. Yeah, I remember Tom and Mike, because Tom Bodman was leaving and Mike
Yes.
was transitioning in as the new CEO. So Tom said, "Okay, so who's going to do this interview? I'm not going to do this interview.
'Cause
I'm
I'm
leaving. Mike, this is your guy. Mike and I said, "This is fantastic. Would you consider joining us?" I was like, "Bank. I'm a BE
I
guy.
can imagine.
I'm an
Yes.
entrepreneur.
And you were known as the BE guys
You know?
in town.
Yeah.
You were moving the deals.
I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a BE guy."
Do you still feel that way or do you have a preference? Entrepreneurship
I
versus
think it's two
corporate?
sides of the same coin. Actually, I've always felt it's two sides of the same coin.
So Ciko, what I'm finding interesting, and I mean, that time, you probably look in 2006, 2008, I wanted to get into business, and I would look at to be inspired by guys. And I remember that time, it was like there was the political guys.
Yeah.
I think it was the big five at that time doing all the transactions, and then there was you guys, right? Young, hungry individuals going out, and I think that's when White Capital decided we want to transact with the guys that probably don't come with the baggage of politics. How did you guys get in there? How did you feel?
Yeah.
Who was knocking on the door?
Yeah. No, I mean, there was a lot of knocking on doors, as I say. I mean, Barloworld is a classical case of a company that came knocking. They literally put a call through and called us in. The thing about it is we'd ran our own businesses. We were paying salaries. I worried about my people. We employed, at some stage in the car dealerships across the board, we employed more than 100 people across the different dealerships.
It's a lot.
And I worried about the livelihoods of those people. We led them and their families and their livelihoods. So we ran businesses. We weren't just guys who wore suits and went and talked and did BE deals.
Yes.
We talked 25%. We
Yes.
weren't those guys. So that model never had sustainable appeal to us at all. So it was not something that we wanted to do.
I think that's because you have a very different view on BE, right? It gets a lot of criticism, and I'm sure that you've actually, experienced maybe some parts of that bad rap. But why not keep to it if it was a winning formula?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's necessary. I mean, I'm a big BE fan. I think the kind of the toning down of, we need to have an ongoing conversation around the necessity. It needs to evolve. We need a different model, but it's very necessary. So take nothing about what I say about BE. The fact that we chose a different model, we chose to walk away from it, is not an indictment on the notion. Okay. The notion is an absolute necessity for the society. We need a moneyed black class to solve the country's challenges, social challenges. We really do.
I'm tempted to take it even further because naturally, as you say, you and your crew, Sirame and the likes and the business partners that you have, you must have amazing conversations about doing business while black. And the challenges that you experience, either as an entrepreneur or working in corporate, and some of the issues that we might still face but would not actually openly talk about in a public platform.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Because there's also that idea that in many ways you get into this like very senior corporate roles.
Yes.
And like when you get into the C-suite proper,
Yes.
it's a different challenge because the C-suite at this time is predominantly white and male. And that comes with its own challenges, and you have to get in there and lend. And often there's this notion that the environment will adapt to accommodate you. The reality is different. The reality is different. If you don't have the smarts to understand that this is the game that you're playing. I always compare it to soccer. If you're playing a game at Stoke in the middle of winter, the weather at Stoke City is not going to change to accommodate you. The fields are soggy, everyone is drunk on beer. You have to adapt to the conditions.
Yes.
And prove your colors.
And how have you adapted?
Yeah, I think, I kind of, I think I've done a reasonable job of it, eh? Yeah, I've done a reasonable job of it.
I think you walked into the cliche role of the black executive marketing, and now you run a business,
Yeah.
But what I want to do before we get into the business side and then end up talking soccer and art in the end is there's an insight that one of the interviews you did about friendship and business, and everybody that you've done business with, are you friends? And you keep saying, no, me and Lita are still friends, me and this person. I mean, I have good friends around businesses. I'm not friends with them anymore.
Yeah.
What did you learn about vision, friendship, and the toughies of business?
Yeah. No, it's interesting you say that. I've got friends that I did business with that are still friends of mine, but I would never do business with. And we've had to go through that journey of fighting as business partners.
Yes.
And then saying, we hate each other as business partners, but you know what? Our friendship is bigger than that. So let's divorce as business partners, but let's protect the friendship.
Sure.
And that calls for a certain level of maturity, especially when it comes to money, because these things come to money and people take each other out for money, irrespective of friendship. So that's always been the guiding principle, and it's the kind of person I am, I suppose. I'm a simple guy, man. I'm from New Brighton. Machita ke machita.
Sure.
You don't change that. You don't change that character of umchita first and foremost, and then you build everything else from there. And people have got different values about these things. There are people who are driven by money. Money is money, and money comes first, and everything else comes after money. I'm not that person. I'm all about the strength of friendships. So it was always easy to preserve the essence of friendship, and both sides count, because as much as I've had fallouts with friends who were business partners, I've then learned that you mentioned Lita. Lita and I will kill for each other as friends and as business partners. We'll absolutely kill for each other. I don't second guess him. Lita could go if we had a business account and something needed to be paid. He doesn't even need my signature. He's never going to do something untoward. I trust him that much, and him, me. So it's intuitive. So, and that speaks to, because we do that, because we're friends and we operate as kind of siblings almost. So, and there's a place for that in kind of life and business, just kind of, what does friendship mean to a person?
Sure.
Yeah.
So now you're out of the B world, you get into banking. Out of all places, Nedbank, right? so in terms of transformation and all that, and what weight does a person like Ciko Thomas, who's the head of RBB at Nedbank and is black, carry? Because there's a savior mentality that we all have. We sit, I've been in corporate as well, and you're not seeing transformation, but you say, Ciko is there, maybe he's just chowing for himself, he's looking after himself. But then there's also an element of you need to deliver your mandate to the bank because they're paying you. How do you balance that? Because I sometimes feel, back to business who are black, there's a pressure on black executives to deliver on a mandate, sometimes before the business results, or balancing the business results and transformation. How have you navigated that arena?
It's, Bongani, these things are easy, if you have a sense of,
Sound calm.
people complicate these things, We get into corporate and kind of get ourselves tied into a knot, If you are in a business, it's all about performance. You earn your stripes through performance. I always say to people, deliver first, then you earn your license. If you go in there, it's life, You go in there and you score a hat-trick as a striker. You know what? The coach is not going to shout at you if you're lumbering around the field and you're sitting and holding whilst everyone else is running. It's not. You deliver first, then you earn the right to drive transformation. Okay. So often these things, unfortunately, in South Africa, there's pressure to do everything. Everything needs to be done every time, at the same time, all at once. And if you don't prioritize what's going to be important to the important stakeholders, and in business, your most important stakeholders often are your investors.
Yeah.
If it's like if you cut it with the people who put their money, their hard-earned money into your business, if you earn their trust, they give you license. Yeah, I can bring in a darkie here, can transform here, I can now shuffle the decks to suit a larger transformation agenda.
Yes.
You know, people fall into the trap of wanting to do it all from day one. And unfortunately, unless you've got a magic wand and you can deliver brilliant results from day one, and on day two, therefore, you've earned the license to transform, great. You know, but life doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You know, so that's my own personal philosophy. And that's why I kind of say it's simple.
Yeah, no,
You mentioned...
Sorry, Googs. You know, I've been in my role now for 5 years, you know.
Yes.
I run the biggest BU at Nedbank. I've got 2/3 of the bank reports to me in terms of number of people. And so you are constantly in the spotlight. Whether you like it or not, you are the guy, you're the leader in the spotlight for a whole lot of reasons. And if you don't understand the things that put you in the spotlight, you're going to miss the trick.
You sound like you have it all together though, Ciko.
I don't. Got grey hairs. when I got the role, Graham, when he appointed me, he said, you have a beautiful lock of black hair and a nice beard that's all black and glowing. You're going to get a patch of bald and you're going to go grey. I was like, bring it on. No, it's stressful. You know?
What are the things that keep people up at night?
So from a business point of view, it's performance. You know, it's really performance. And I mean, retail banking is tough, eh? It's really, really tough. It's no man's game, that. That thing is tough. You know, and you've got incredible competitors. You know, you've got guys like Capitec who are running you off the ground every single day.
Yes.
You know, and if you don't have your smarts about you and you can't keep up, you're going to get taken out. You know, so just performance of the business. Managing people, keeping people focused. I mean, my executive team, when I walked in, I think I was on the phone with someone.
Yes, you were.
You know, if you are not constantly reminding people and putting them together, guys, that's where we're headed. This is a game.
Yes.
You know? As people get distracted. So I worry about my people a lot. I worry about, because they're vital cog in terms of delivering performance and business performance. And then you worry about the drivers of that, what's happening around you. You worry about the macro. You know, you see a news article and you read that there was taxi violence in Coston, in PE, and you think, I've got a branch right next to the taxi rank. How did that impact people? Or looting in KZN? You worry about the macro, big and small, you know, things that are playing out. So those are the things that kind of keep one's mind busy. You know?
So what do you do to relax then? I know football is right up there.
Yeah.
You support Arsenal, right? I'm trying. I've heard that Ciko is a Chiefs and Arsenal fan.
I'll leave it to you, Ciko.
You might just walk off
I
the
talk
seat.
numbers.
I support Orlando Pirates and Liverpool. That's it. Anything else
But if you had to fix Arsenal and treat it as a retail bank, you talk about people, you talk about playing,
Yes,
you talk
please,
about
yeah.
performance,
Yeah.
what would you do to fix
I
it?
would love to fix Arsenal.
Really?
Yeah, it's a proper brand. It's a brand with tradition. You know, I'd fire Arteta. I'd fire Arteta. Fix out, you know, I think also they're in a bit of a financial dwank,
Yes.
as all these clubs are. So it's hard when, you know, money is tight and it's a game based on the ability to deliver product.
Yes.
You know, and I think part of the reason, and I know I'm gonna sound biased. That's the magic of someone like Jurgen Klopp. He's a proper people's leader. He didn't buy stars first.
Yes.
He didn't buy. In fact, he sold his stars to fix the basics, sort out your defense, the basics of a club. You can't have a club without a defense. So he goes and sells his best player, Philip Coutinho, to Barcelona reluctantly. Takes the money and buys and fixes the basics. Buys Virgil van Dijk and buys Ellison. the cornerstone of a defense. And that's it.
And there's been ROI, yeah?
Hey?
There's been huge ROI.
The team has looked untouchable, man, other than when they play Manchester City.
Talking about money, Middle East money coming into the league, Newcastle.
Yeah, I think it spoils the...
You sound like you sound like you're a soccer purist.
Yeah, I'm a traditionalist, you know. I even frowned upon the Americans when they invested at Liverpool.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a simple game, you know. This is a game where the local rich guy, you know, the guy was a panel beater, put money into the club and puts the Bongani's panel beaters as a sponsor, and it's a club for the community.
Yes.
You know, that's what makes this thing. I mean, I always pine back to the days when Orlando Pirates had fruit tree on their chest. You know,
yes.
That was the team. You know, it felt local. It's a juice that is drank in the community, and they sponsor the community team. You know, yeah. So I frown upon a lot of that.
And your son, does he support Liverpool?
It has nothing to do with me.
Really?
Absolutely nothing to do with me. You know, always people look at me and say, but you make your son do all these things. He goes to the school that you went to and he supports the football club that you do. It had nothing to do with me. He chose the school that he goes to, and he chose to support Liverpool.
How much of what you've learned from your dad, and I'm tying it back now to that trip to the VW plant where your dad worked and they were tossing you around as a little young man, how much of your relationship with your father has influenced how you show up as a father for your son?
Everything, Gugu.
Really?
Probably everything, you know. You know, and it's tough. You know, we're talking about this earlier. You know, you're a father yourself, Bongani.
I feel like a failure. Andile Kumalo was on the show. He's like, if you are a man and you've not convinced your sons or your son to support the team that you support,
or daughter, let's gender parity here.
Or daughter,
yes,
you have not succeeded.
I think there's a bit of truth to what Adi said, you know? But except I didn't have to do it. I didn't have to do it in a tough way. It's so, Gugu, your point. It's you model yourself on. I mean, I looked up to my father hugely. I absolutely admired my father. My father was a man, you know. So a lot of that I probably take upon both my children. You know, I've got a very close relationship with my daughter.
Last born.
Often,
Daddy's girl.
And girls do things to their fathers. They wrap them around their fingers.
No, they don't.
Absolutely, they do.
When are you the last born? You should ask
Yeah, girls manipulate their fathers.
No, we don't. We just have very honest and open relationships with them, and we're vulnerable, and then they respond.
Please. Yeah. So it's been a big influence for me. Great. You know, absolutely. You know, I would love to have my dad passed away. I would love my children to have the relationship with me that I had with my parents.
I know time is a thing. Retail bankers, you always need to be on the go. So Gugu's got this question, and I'll ask it this time around: is if you were, and be it leadership, business, life, family, because this is a family table, and for us it's more about giving each other advice, learning. If you were to have 5 people at your family table to have a conversation with, who would it be? Dead or alive?
5 people. Jeez,
and why?
You're limiting me to 5. Okay, I'll need to think very hard and quickly around this. I'll have Madiba.
Okay.
I think this guy is a towering giant of our times.
Sure. Of
modern history, not just as Africans.
Yes.
Just as a leader, an incredible man. I'll have him. I'll have Miles Davis. I'll have Miles. He'll probably spoil it for everyone, but I'll have Miles. I would have a soccer player, but a soccer player who can talk. Who would that be? Probably John Barnes.
Yes.
I'd probably have John Barnes around the table, and I would probably have Condoleezza Rice.
Wow.
I mean, just what she stood for as a black woman. She's just incredible, with silence and with dignity and with grace.
Yeah.
You know, values that I hugely admire, and just such an incredible leader. You know, I would have her, and the last person would be, I don't know. Jeez, I can't think of the last person I would have. Probably another sports person. Yeah.
Mr. Thomas, thank you for coming and joining us at the family table.
It's been great.
It was great.
It's awesome, guys. Thank you.
Drink.
Yes, I am.
Otherwise, it's terrible.
What's terrible?
You don't know that if you don't know.
What's terrible?
It's a
Should-
family,
let's-
It's a family show.
We'll leave it there.
Say it and keep it clean.
So they say if you toast and don't look people in the eye,
Oh,
right,
right.
and don't drink,
After.
it's 9 years of terrible sex.
I thought it was 7.
Is it 7?
Bongani is added. I thought that only applies to broken mirrors, by the way. Not a toast.
What do you mean?
If you break a mirror, then it's 7 years of bad sex.
If you break a mirror?
Yes.
I've never broken a mirror.
No have I.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Ciko.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Cool,
you.
man. This was
Thank
good.
you guys.
It was
Yeah,
fun.
this is great.